Hey everyone, I just wanted to make a video and to address some subject matter that I consider important, and maybe you do too. And this is regarding what inspired me to make this video is regarding a post that I saw last night on Facebook that I commented on. I tried to avoid doing that and expressing my opinion, either agreeing with somebody or disagreeing with somebody on social media. That doesn't always go well, and it can be just kind of a waste of time. But this is regarding Jeff Berlin, who is a world-renowned bass player, legendary bass player, who I follow on Facebook and who I have a great amount of respect for, actually, as a player. And that's the reason I follow him. And I see his posts all the time. They pop up on my news feed all the time for whatever reason, algorithms, because I'm a bass player. He posts a lot about music education and his opinions about music education, which are somewhat controversial. And he's been heavily critical of other players' teaching methods, like some of the professors at Berklee College of Music and other places. He claims that a lot of these people shouldn't be teaching, and he's not really open-minded in terms of other methods beyond traditional methods of methods of teaching. In his case, bass, guitar. I do agree with some of his opinions, and there are other opinions that he has that are quite strong, and he makes an effort to put them out there on Facebook, and I see them on my newsfeed. So last night, I decided to challenge him a little bit on one of his posts, which didn't go well. I was pretty polite about it. I didn't attack him personally or anything, and I think that's the problem with social media, is that it's really easy to attack somebody personally on an opinion that I have, and I never do that. I will criticize. I will disagree with the post, and I will criticize the subject matter regarding the post, or perhaps the person's opinion. Constructive criticism, or critical thinking. So his post was regarding. It started out him sharing some statistics and projections of the growth and employment in the music industry, I guess, in the United States over the next 5 years or so. And it's predicted that there will be very, very slow growth behind a lot of other industries, and that's not really surprising. But then he brought that back to music education, saying, well, it's like, well, maybe more. He suggested, I'm just paraphrasing here, he just suggested that perhaps there would be more growth if people got a better education in music and used the tried and true traditional method of music education. And he's the kind of guy who really, he believes in traditional methods and sort of like one size fits all method of teaching. And I kind of disagree with that. And he's criticized guys like Victor Wooten and the Wooten brothers for their methods of teaching. But I've studied with Future Man. I haven't studied with Victor Wooten, but I studied for a while with Future Man, and it wasn't related to anything bass, but it was related to music. It was about poetry and rhythm and spoken word and how those things all relate to each other. And basically his workshop was about sparking creativity. And you might not think that applies to bass or your instrument, but it does. It does. You can, and certainly if you want to compose music or write lyrics, that certainly does apply. So I really respect the Wooten brothers because maybe some of their methods of teaching are teaching music and sharing their knowledge is unorthodox, but the intention of their method of teaching and sharing of knowledge is to spark creativity, and it really does do that, and they've really helped a lot of musicians. And Berlin, he is heavily critical of that. I don't know why. He just keeps going on and on and on about it. So anyway, I decided to challenge him, and I said, well, like, that's fine, but what about other people who just struggle with reading music, or people who are artistic, or people who are blind, or disabled in some way, and they're not able to learn music the traditional way, like in elite universities, for example. I myself, in music college, I really struggled with reading. A part of it was a concentration thing. I have a lot of difficulty concentrating. I struggle with ADHD, and I've always really just played and composed music by ear for most of my adult life. And I've always really struggled with reading. And when it's amazing that I did get through college, but I probably had to work harder than some people at it because, I just, like, the theory and the reading wasn't coming to me while I was in the school. And I appreciate music theory much more now than I used to. I saw it as an inconvenience and sort of getting in the way of me making music in the past, but I don't think that now. And I think reading is really important. But personally, I'm not a good reader, and I've always struggled with it. And I really feel that like when I was in school, my professors and other people looked down on me because of that. And I really felt ostracized because of that. And I know there are other people out there who do. And there needs to be more people out there who can support those people and perhaps find alternative ways to help them with their music, help them along, and teach them and share knowledge with them. And that can require alternative methods of teaching. And I really feel like those people need to be more seen. It needs to be more talked about how, not everybody learns the same way. And this one fits all approach to teaching doesn't work. It doesn't work for everyone because one size does not fit all. There's the expression, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life believing that it is stupid. I'm not sure if that's the exact quote, but it's something like that. I may be paraphrasing. And that applies to learning. People with learning disabilities, or is it a disability, or they just learn a different way, Obviously, a blind person can't read music. There are some great musicians who were some of the greatest musicians of the last century who couldn't read music. And I'm going to name a few. Okay, bass player Pino Palladino. He doesn't read notation. He said that in an interview. I'm sure he reads chord charts and things like that in the studio, but he's got a good ear and he doesn't read music. Does that limit him in some respects? Maybe, but he's an incredibly versatile bass player. He's one of the most versatile bass players in the world. And I've seen him play jazz. I've seen him play all kinds of music. If you go on YouTube, he's hanging with jazz players. He's playing with Nine Inch Nails. He's playing with D'Angelo. He's playing with John Mayer. Everybody. Jimi Hendrix could not read music. Miles Davis was teaching him music theory just before he died, perhaps he would have grabbed onto that. But someone like Jimmy, he didn't need to read music. Maybe he wouldn't have been able to create what he created if he grew up reading music. I think creativity should be something that is taught more, and I think that's what the Wooten brothers are doing with their camps and everything. They're applying nature to music and bringing in different elements, and it all ties together. And I think that's a beautiful way to learn music. There are people who will criticize that, and that's fine. But I think they have found a good method, just as one example of teaching creativity. And if you want to teach the traditional method, that's fine too. I mean, why dismiss alternative methods of teaching music, Jeff? That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to tag Jeff in this or anything like that. But I just wanted to make this video because, yeah, and so I questioned that, and I said, well, what about all these other people who aren't able to learn a traditional method? And he just dismissed it and said, oh, well, though, there's not a lot of people who are disabled and blind and etc. who work in the music industry. It's like, well, I mean, come on, are you so you don't think, are you dismissing those people working in the industry then? Don't you think they should have a shot at working in the music business? I mean, there's plenty of examples of people who are challenged in some way, either physically or mentally, who have become very successful, and I feel like there just isn't one pathway to becoming a good musician, and not even one pathway to becoming a good professional musician. There isn't just one pathway, and so that's what I'm saying. And I respect Jeff Berlin, but I'm getting a little tired of him criticizing. I mean, he even criticized Marcus Miller, because Marcus Miller said, I think jazz soloing might be more interesting if more players these days took risks and maybe weren't afraid of making mistakes. I completely agree with that, because that is really the spirit of jazz, is taking risks, in my opinion. I feel like jazz has become too academic, has become too institutionalized, and I would really love to go out and see more jazz musicians just taking more risks, really, or just musicians in general, instead of just like going and playing in tribute bands. And okay, there's nothing wrong with tribute bands. They make money. I get it. But I just really wish that people would maybe make more of an effort to take risks. I know it's harder to do these days. I know the algorithms make us conform to this and that genre, but I would really like to see more open-mindedness and more creativity taught, and just people being creative in general and taking risks in music. And that's all I have to say for this evening. All right, everybody, take care. Bye for now.